At 7 p.m. is a call to order. If I want to call everyone to order. If you are coming to the microphone to speak, please be sure to give your name and your address. And I think there are no other announcements. All right, if we could have roll call, commissioners, please.
Joanne Mackey.
Rhett Harbison.
Bob Bigger.
Lynn Carter.
And I'm your chair, Christine Crawford, and we'll want to welcome Commissioner Brett Harbison to his first meeting. So thank you, and we appreciate your service, and we look forward to working with you. All right. So could we please have the review of the minutes, if there are any changes or suggestions? If not, I'd appreciate a motion to approve the minutes from the January 19th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the January 19th, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Paradise, would you please confirm the agenda, or do you have any other notes for us today before we get started?
I would bring your attention to the first item on the agenda, application RZM 22-001. During the preparation of the report, there were some things that came up that the applicant wanted to address before he moved forward with the application, and he asked for that to be continued to next month.
Oh, okay. All right. So application RZM 212 is no longer on the agenda for this month, and we expect to see it in April's meeting.
We hope so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. All right. Being no other changes, we'll move to application PP 21-002, Green Forest Commons. All right. Mr. Paradise, do you have any comments about this application?
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna get this computer thing to work for me yet.
Okay. Oh, and Commissioner Mackey is recusing herself from application PP 21-002.
There we go. Finally got it. This is an application for Green Forest Commons. It's a request by Hardy Land LLC. The request is for a 12 townhome subdivision located on plus or minus 2.02 acres that's zoned R5, mixed residential, and it's off West 5 Notch Road. The applicant is also requesting a waiver from section 14.19 of the Development Code relating to internal connectivity ratio for a small subdivision. And also for the design, the design also does not comply with figure 14-2 or 14-3 for a one-access subdivision in that it doesn't have a close or a cul-de-sac at the end. This is a copy I have up now, the subdivision as it's laid out.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Paradise with regards to this application? Okay.
I do. I was just looking at it from a layperson standpoint. There's a cul-de-sac. Is that you just mean with the surround? Would that not be could be accomplished if this, you know, if the setbacks were a little bit different, or we gave a variance on the,
You,
where it stubs out, you know, the square, when it comes in,
comes in and you take a left.
right.
If I don't know. The developer, and I hope he's here. I hadn't looked behind me yet, but would you see the topo there? And he indicated that the terrain and the geography wouldn't give him room enough for that.
Are both road ends technically in violation of that, because they both kind of come to a flat, so it's really two issues there, or is it
Correct.
one approval covers both variances?
One approval covers both.
Okay.
But it's both an issue. The first one, when you come in straight, that would take you to the mail kiosk, so that isn't taking you to a residence. Whereas you turn left and you'll come down to the townhomes.
And if you go in straight, if you go any further, you go into the greenway, so right, there's no real room without getting into the topography on the greenway to do it there either.
Yes, sir, and I would look at the topo as well between there and the greenway as far as trying to fit in the cul-de-sac. Or that is, you know, the developer's position on it.
In getting in and getting out, there's no, based on the size, no deceleration lane. They've got that traffic light. Is that gonna assist them in getting out?
There's the traffic light down at the down
the
at the
end.
intersection.
Right.
This was not a large enough subdivision to trip a traffic study. So there wasn't any, from our end, there wasn't any requirements for a decel lane or any other roadway improvements.
Okay, if there are no other questions from Mr. Paradise, if the applicant is here and would like to make comments, then please come forward, give your name and your address.
I'm Bo Slaughter with James G. Swift and Associates, representing Mr. Glenn Brooker at 1206 Interstate Parkway, Augusta, Georgia. And first, I'd like to address the cul-de-sac. The International Fire Code has a minimum of 150 feet on the road without having to require a cul-de-sac if we have a alternate backup and turnaround. And that's why that straight ahead is extended as far as it is, so the fire truck can back, or bus or whatever, turn right there and then go straight back out. So that's why the arrangement, it is what it is.
So the average width of roads between the units, is that standard or is it wider?
Width between units?
Yeah, where you're coming up, when you're coming up the middle, you're gonna have to come in and you're gonna have to back out towards your mailboxes.
That's
go back out.
right, for emergency vehicles.
Right,
or
right.
Bus. Yes.
Trash trucks,
Yes, sir.
ambulance,
Yes, sir.
school buses.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, but is that the road that you will pull up into and back out, is that just a standard width?
Yes, sir. Both are standard and has the radius to conform to the International Fire Code. I mean, it's a full width, both roads are full width, back curb for this zoning and development.
I think I'm asking it wrong. It is standard, it is not extra large, it's not a wider width to accommodate the backing out, that's what I'm asking. It's
Not-
just standard.
The width from back of curb to back of curb is standard.
Yes, standard.
Yes, sir.
Was there anything else? We just jumped into the asking questions part. Was there anything that you wanted to present?
That sounded like was the key, point in the matter for the length of that road without a cul-de-sac. And it, like I said, it meets the 150 feet, you know, to be able to not have to have the cul-de-sac.
All right, Commissioners, are there any other questions for the applicant?
Have y'all come up with the style of the townhomes?
Style,
Yeah.
the exterior,
Yes. Isn't it? Did I miss it? That's a curiosity question. That's not a.
They will be required, they would be required to meet the design guidelines within the development code. There has not been any variances, you know, requested for that, but I don't see the design in our staff report.
Will it connect to the Greenway or not?
there'll be a path down the sanitary sewer easement that will connect to the Greenway.
But a formal path, not just a,
Just not a road, no,
not
sir.
a paved,
No,
but
you
paved,
wouldn't-
something paved, they can get to them or something like that? Or just-
Right, I mean, it'll either be a little paved road or mulch or graveled access, pedestrian access, not vehicular.
Oh, I understand. Got two other questions. You're talking about street size and street width. Normally, in such a small development, as far as street parking is concerned, number of cars, if somebody parks in front of my unit and somebody parks across the street in front of their unit,
You have
is
room to go
there
between.
accessible? Is there room between that, I guess is what I'm saying? Is it wide enough to accompany that part?
As long as they don't park out in the lane. I mean, if they park at the curb, yes, sir, you could get 3 cars side by side.
And then my third question is, as far as the buffer to the back of those homes, I guess going into that new Knollwood section, what's the distance there? I don't read these maps real well. When you're coming off 5 Notch, those 2 homes right there on the corner?
The ones that are in the Green Forest
Yes.
subdivision,
Yes.
it's a 20-foot buffer and structural buffer over there. If I'm not mistaken, it may be 25. But that was already set with the original zoning way back when they had this original piece of property zoned. I think it shows up better on the little planning, landscaping plan. That's got it on there. The buffer's on there.
Does that help you?
That's a little clearer, but the easement line's off of that one. The other one has it.
My only comment or question is, right, have you tried to turn out a green forest at 8 o'clock in the morning on a school day? And what's your thoughts on how the residents of this development will deal with that being even closer to the light, knowing that traffic backs up from that stoplight way up past, well, almost to
Celeste.
up to Celeste, yeah, in the mornings. So getting left out of that neighborhood is going to be even more challenging than it is for us getting out of Green Forest that are further away from it.
Yeah, I have not been there at 8 o'clock in the morning, but, I mean, just as like where I live, I get up earlier to beat the traffic. I mean, it's easy said,
Right.
but, you know, but some days you run late, you hit it, and you'll have to wait and hopefully find a good Samaritan to let you out. I mean, it's, we don't generate barely 20 trips per day leaving with that number of townhomes. So hopefully we won't inconvenience that many.
And in a pinch, right, you turn right, and, well,
You're good.
unfortunately, you turn right, and then you cut through the Green Forest neighborhood, and you circle back up through Bolin and come back down to the light if you need to go left. But that's
Don't tell them that.
they do it already. The school traffic already cuts through Green Forest to avoid that stoplight. So that's already a shortcut, unfortunately.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, sir, if you could have a seat, and what we will do is now ask if there are any comments or questions from the community at large, and then if need be, we'll allow the applicant a few minutes to respond before we discuss it further. All right. Are there any comments or concerns from the community? Okay, if you could come up to the front, sir, and please give your name and address.
Yes, my name is Glenn Lynn, and address is 408 West 5 Notch Road. How will this affect me across the street? It dumps right in my driveway. Do I look at the back of the houses, or are they going to dump out on 5 Notch?
Okay. Is there, so you have concerns about the,
Yeah, about
Okay.
the value of my property, looking at the back of somebody's house.
Where exactly, I'm not understanding, where do you live?
Across the street from it,
Across 5 knots?
across 5 Notch.
Okay, so,
So I'm in the county, so I really don't have a whole lot to say about it. Don't do it without me. It's been done before.
so you're on the other side of 5 Notch Road?
Right, I'm in the county, so I don't really have any say about what y'all are doing.
This is, I don't think you're gonna be behind those houses.
If the back of those houses, my property is looking at the back of your house, right?
Okay,
What we're gonna have
I
there.
see what you're saying. I can render an opinion. I don't know that, I've been on the planning commission for quite some time, and what we look for is the highest and best use, and the property owners do have say in what they're trying to accomplish in the use of their property. In my opinion, this probably is the highest and best use. I'm from I grew up in North Augusta, and that property has been vacant quite some time. And I don't think it's going to have any intrinsic evaluation of your property. That's just my opinion now. I'm not a realtor. And I think by developers or builders coming into an area with infill, bringing more rooftops, I think, in my opinion, it may enhance the value. And all of the properties that we've had, that commercial property has been placed next to homes, I've not seen that property values have been lessened. And that's an opinion.
Excuse me, I'd also like to ask the developer when he gets a chance to come back up here to ask us, right, because it will be the backs of these, the townhomes. Will they have a yard? Will there be a fence with a yard? Maybe he can expand a little bit on that when he comes back up and help you feel better. And another question for you. In the neighborhood across the street, isn't there a 6-foot wooden fence along there? Do you actually, what?
No, I'm right at the, where the survey marker is right at the power line. Cuts
Okay.
through,
Okay,
and that's just past my driveway, because I'm in between. My property is in between Ponderosa and Pinion. I got 5 acres across the road. I'm on Ponderosa. I've knocked him in Ponderosa.
all right, Mr. Lynn, so you shared with us your concerns about being on the back, and we'll see if there are any other comments from the community, and then we'll allow the applicant to respond and address those. All right. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate it. Okay. Are there any other comments or concerns from the community? Okay, Mr. Slaughter, if you could come back up and answer that question, and then,
Yes, ma'am. In many of these developments, when they're facing the road like that with the parking in the rear, the front facing the road is going to look like the front of the townhome. In essence, that's going to be the front of the building as far as architecture is concerned. And there's a small yard and an existing planted buffer along there also. So it'll be, view-wise, it'll be shielded with plantings, and it'll look like the front of the house. I mean, the architecture will look like it, with a door and the But you're not gonna be able to see a whole lot of it because of the buffer. And of course, it won't be dumping out individually, it'll all be coming out the one driveway, the one road.
Point of clarification for Mr. Lynn. I believe you're referencing the project that we're not discussing tonight, because there was a piece of property across from Pinion that was being discussed. This is the property that's behind the Greg's Gas Plus up on Five Notch. So I don't believe your house is impacted by this. So the property I think you're referring to has been delayed till next meeting. So if I believe, yeah, that Ponderosa and Pinion is across from the parcel that we're not discussing. So you're good for now, I think, is the answer on that one. Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you.
I was right. I was confused a little bit myself.
Well, no, because I was looking and I didn't see, but yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Commissioners, are there any other questions as we discuss or concerns or vantage points that you all want to share before we decide to take a vote?
As I said before, I don't know of any other highest and best use for that property that has been there, red clay, for quite some time. So I would be inclined to vote for.
So is that a motion?
That is a
Commissioner
motion in reference to application PP 21-002 Green Forest Common, a request by Hardy Land LLC for approval of 12 townhouses located on 2.02 acres, zone R5. I'd like to make a motion for approval with stated waivers.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. And Commissioner Mackey could come back in. Thank you. All right, so we're moving on to application PP 22-001 Village Square Townhomes. Mr. Paradise, do you have anything to share with us about this particular application?
Yes, ma'am. This is an application by Graham Bruton LLC for approval of 77 townhomes located on 8.19 acres off of Stevens Farm Lane. That is what's commonly referred to as the Snelling Tract. It's part of the 274-acre Sweetwater planned development. They're not asking for any waivers, and this is the layout that you see up there.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Paradise on this application from the commission? Okay. There being none, will the applicant please come forward and please give your name and address and share any information you'd like for the commissioners to know.
My name is Charlie Hall. I'm with Alfred Benish Engineering, 1005 Broad Street, Augusta, 30901. Before you have a 77-lot single-story townhome development. We've got open space. This layout complies pretty close to the plan that was approved for the major mod in the revision we made in 2021. And I don't have a lot else to add there. We didn't need any waivers. We've got water and sewer. We've addressed staff comments. We'll be making that resubmittal tomorrow, and it's fairly straightforward.
Commissioners, do you all have any questions of Mr. Hall?
Another point of curiosity. These are parking pads.
Yes, sir.
In the front?
There are 2 spaces per lot,
Two spaces
and then
per
we've
lot.
got 3 spaces for the postal kiosk or.
And then in the ordinances, so many units, you have to have one extra. Is that correct?
We're required to have one per lot.
One.
We have two, so we meet the,
Okay.
we meet the requirement plus the guest parking requirement and then some.
In the design, I just have something in my head a lot of times is why do we not use, like, this is a lot of units, and invariably they're gonna park on the street. Why do in our designs we don't have alleyways and parking behind and pull houses forward? Is that a lot more expensive in doing that, where it's more like a township than a bunch of parks in the front of a house on a stoop?
Well, you know, you can end up with double streets. And the alleyways just on this one, there's just not enough room to do an alleyway type concept. These lots are really small as they are.
And so you would lose
You would lose
lot
the units,
size.
but I believe you'd also probably increase the amount of surface area you've got in terms of pavement. And we were required to hold 30%. I think we're at 35% open space. So we were trying to be cognizant of rooftop and the open space. And we've got a fair amount of not just open space, but common open space. There'll be a playground. There's a sort of a walking trail down between the bisects the site. And then we've got a fairly healthy buffer around the project itself.
It's a point of curiosity.
And I agree with you about the pulling them forward. I like that type of design. It just did not apply here.
Any other questions for Mr. Hall? Okay, Mr. Hall will follow the same format as he did with the last one. All right, are there any members of the community who would like to make a statement or ask any questions with regards to this application? Okay, there being none. Commissioners, discussion, please. Any concerns, thoughts? And if not, a motion.
Just have one question. I think I directed to Mr. Paradise. That lead-in road currently has no signal, if I'm looking at it correctly. Is there a chance that DOT, based on these units that are moving in here, not just this, but the other ones, that there would be a possibility of putting another signal there?
You mean at Stevens, do you mean at Stevens Farm Lane?
In 25,
In
yeah.
25? That would,
Because you now have,
yeah.
you have additional, what I vision and seeing if we put these units in is that they're going to try to they're going to access the first road between the car wash and between the Walmart parking lot to get to the red light at Walnut, to take a left, because the left there is pretty much impossible. I mean, it really is.
And I'm trying to think of the layout and the distances. You know, there's the distances between lights for DOT. Would that be an adequate distance there? And then there's not enough units here. We didn't trip traffic analysis here. And I don't know, I'm telling you what I don't know. I don't know the current condition of that intersection, how close it is to tripping the warrant, the justify. So could it?
There's a suicide lane, but that's why it's called that, because it's tough to take a left out of that drive there, particularly when people out of the other side of the food line trying to take a left the other way with that median that's sitting there about 4 inches high. I'm just saying that would be a great move if we could do that. I don't know if we need to ask that question or not.
I understand, and I don't know if this would trip it or not, to be honest with you. That's not something that we had really studied regarding this project.
And I think Commissioner Carter brings up a great point about the project in and of itself not triggering a traffic study, but at which point do concurrent projects trigger a traffic study? And so maybe we need to give some thought to that.
That was a great point. That had it jotted down, and I'm glad you brought it up, because that is a treacherous turn. That's not, it's treacherous, because you got traffic coming from the grocery stores and the other, to get in the suicide lane, to get out. And so we shouldn't be as callous to say we need about 10 accidents before they start looking at it. That's something that really needs to be looked into, because it's treacherous. And for 70-something cars, 70-something houses, 2 trips, so you're gonna have 140 people trying. That's not with the other traffic from the commercial getting out from that direction. It's gonna be more than an ocean. So I don't think that we necessarily need to just sit back and say, oh, they'll make a way. We need to be planning and proactive and seeing if we can get something there. Either make them, force them to turn right.
Remember, and I'm trying to think of who has Stevens Farm Lane. That may very well be a city road. But yeah, but the traffic light's something we can look into.
Yeah, because all of the units that are on Stevens Farm, they're coming out there as well.
Correct.
And then you got 150 to 200 trips more in the morning and the afternoons. And here again, I'm for the development. I'm not anti. But can we bring the applicant back up?
Please, Mr. Hall, thank you.
So when you were developing, you had to see this. What were y'all?
Well, we were actually part of the master plan team for
Right.
Sweetwater. And I know that the intersection that was signalized was studied as part of this entire development.
Mm-hmm.
The other signal, well, I believe there's separation there for another signal. It was not warranted at that period, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That crossing at Walnut Lane is significant. There are
Right.
2 left turn lanes coming out. It's a monitored signal. It's staged, so one side releases and then the other side releases. And, while I agree that the sort of a scope creep in terms of development happens, you can't let the last guy on the block foot the bill for everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think this is a conversation to have with DOT, because I believe they had some initial input and buy-in into this overall development. Now, that being said, the master plan has really dissolved. There's not much of a PD left.
Yeah. And my question to you was as an expert.
Sure.
Yeah, for you to give us some ideas.
Absolutely, we've looked at it. But,
and that,
but there is access to the other light, and it does get utilized, but that's the way it was designed.
Yeah, and that road was intentionally straightened in order to get, in my memory, to get people going both ways. So I did not think about that, but
Part of your problem on Edgefield Highway right there is not just what's coming onto it, but it's the number of lanes you're having to cross. That's a difficult maneuver if you have a light, because you're having to cross 4 and 5 lanes in order to make that left. That intersection has been sort of troublesome. I've lived here all my life since there was a Winn-Dixie there.
right.
And there was nothing across the street. That coming out of there, taking a left, going back towards Edgefield has always been, there's a lot of traffic and there's a lot of speed coming through there because you got people coming off the interstate. So I believe this is a conversation that DOT and the city probably need to have in terms of whether that signal can be warranted now and whether or not there is distance between Walnut Lane
And that one.
Stevens Farm Road. It's close, I know that.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Hall? All right, thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions? All right, do we have a motion then?
I will make the motion in reference to application PP 22-001, Village Square townhouses. A request by Graham Bruton LLC for approval of 77 townhomes located on 8.19 acres. I'd like to make a motion for approval, and there were no waivers associated.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay. All commissioners in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. Next up is application SP 21-007 Kia, and we have a recusal by Commissioner Harbison. All right, thank you, Mr. Paradise. Do you have any comments with regards to this application by Kia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You may, Planning Commission may remember this project. It's the old, what I refer to as the old Toyota, Taylor Toyota on Jefferson Davis Highway. The applicant has demolished that building. They have been before the Planning Commission previously to have the rear parcel rezoned, which has been, and it has either been combined with the front parcel or will be combined with the front parcel. So it's about 16.5 acres, zone thoroughfare commercial. And what the applicant is proposing to do is build a new two-story, 44,000 plus square foot dealership and automobile repair center. So this is a major site plan review because it's over 30,000 square feet. And it is, and they are also requesting a waiver from section 10-6 and table 10-7 for the perimeter landscaping for parking. And basically what that waiver is requesting is relief of the small tree requirement for the parking lot areas adjacent to the streets. It will be a reduction of 16 small trees, and the applicant is proposing to use large trees and shrubs along that front grouped together so that there can be some visibility to the site. There has also been some other, on this site, it's in a highway overlay corridor. And it's also has the regular requirements for landscaping. So there's about 3 different sections that cover the front of the perimeter planning on this project. And basically, they've gone to the BZA already and got approval for the landscaping, got some variances to reduce the buffer along the front from 20 feet to 14.5, and to allow the planting strips similar to what they want here from some other things that was making them put small trees in there. But then you have this other section that is also requires the small trees that has to come before y'all for approval. So that's kind of where they're at. They've jumped through a good many hoops, and now they're close to the end. If this is approved, they should. I don't know of any other approval that they'll need other than us signing off on the plans. But it has been a series of things that they've had to jump through.
So when you're when you're speaking of front, you're talking about Highway 1.
Yes, sir.
That's the front.
That's the front.
Okay, and then the other parcels are kind of like on the side.
Yes, sir.
And so I've written on their waiver. So we're talking about large trees on the main road.
Yes, sir. This is what I have up here now is their landscape plan that they've submitted to us so far. And you'll see along the front, the trees and the, how it would be landscaped.
Now, do you get to picking in, when my church came before you guys start looking at species, are you talking about that when you say large trees?
There's and the landscape architect is here that knows more about trees than I do. But basically, the city has specific trees that are approved that are large trees and small trees. So it comes from that list.
And were they happy with the variance that they've already gotten as far as the main corridor as well as the side? From
Yes, sir. I believe so.
It meets their needs, in other words.
Yes, sir.
So are we gonna have them speak to us and then we'll ask questions? Okay. Okay, I thought we were getting out.
No, he was just asking Ms. Paradise's opinion on it. Okay, all right. So, no other questions for Mr. Paradise? All right, if the applicant could please come forward and state your name and address, and share any information that you would like for us to know about the site.
Hello, my name's Alexandra Reynolds, 1296 Broad Street. So I think Mr. Paradise covered it pretty well. This property was subject to 3 layers of landscape along Jefferson Davis Highway. We are still putting in all 3 layers. We're just asking, or excuse me, we're putting in 2 of the 3. We're just asking for a variance to the small tree requirement. So we plan to put in the large trees, so there'll be canopy, and then the shrubs, so those are down low, so there's still views into the inventory, into the site, without the small trees blocking the views into the site. And we are only making this request for Jefferson Davis, the Revco Road, which is not the front. We are intending to put in the full amount of landscape with no variances requested.
So when I looked at all of this, I thought that you were really making an attempt to fix it. And I noticed, I had made a comment myself that I thought that too many trees and people are trying to ride by there, and the husband tells the wife, look at that car, and he's slowing down and they get hit from the rear. So I thought this was a really good way to stop all that. And then I saw in here that there's been a quote in here about safety. So when I looked at this, I thought you'd done a lot of shrubbery, and I mostly appreciate that you're trying.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty.
Yeah, it's got a lot going on, and it needed to be bought and taken care of, and looks like you're trying to do that.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. You're welcome. All right, are there any questions or comments from the community? All right, there being no questions from the community, commissioners, any further discussion? And if not, a question.
So you said that all of the waivers have already been handled by BZA.
Yes, sir.
So there are no waivers on our,
There is
except for the
Shrubbery.
correct. And if you do approve that, that would put it all consistent with the BZA, and everything's good to move forward.
I'll make a motion for application SP 21-007. Give consideration of major site plans and the waiver on the minor road as requested. Like to make a motion for approval.
I second that.
So it has been moved and seconded. Any further question or discussion? Okay. Commissioners, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it carries,
And I missed it. Who made the second?
I did.
Commissioner Clarkson. Thank you. And Commissioner Mackey. Okay. All right. getting Commissioner Harbison. You can come back in, thank you. All right, and we are on to application CON PL 22-001 Highland Springs. And Mr. Paradise, any information you'd like to share with us about this?
Yes, ma'am. This is a sketch plan review for Highland Springs, which is commonly referred to as the Blanchard Tract. It's a planned development that was approved some years ago that has never moved forward. We have new interest in the development, and we met with some possible developers of the site last week, and I appreciate the Commission's indulgence in me in understanding and pushing the agenda packets back so we could accommodate getting the sketch plan review on the agenda for them. What they're doing, and I'll let the applicant speak a lot of it, but my understanding is they've taken out the golf course that was approved, and all of the entitlements or uses are in the existing ordinance. But they're relocating and realigning those. So this would be an amendment to the existing plan development when it comes to y'all, so you would have the final say on that. This project, to give you an idea, is 1,250 acres approximately. There'll be over 2,800 mixed housing units of different types, about 3.2 million square feet of industrial area, 555,000 square feet of village square area, and about the same amount of commercial space. That is what's proposed. And that's what is allowed in the plan that was approved and is in process. Yeah, that's what's allowed in the plan that's already approved. And then they're reallocating that in the sketch plan. And they're in the due diligence, and they want to find out and get comments and feedback and, what is the Planning Commission's ideas and comments as they move forward to finalizing this thing.
Any questions for Mr. Paradise? There being none, would the applicant please come forward?
Good evening. I'm Lance Cheeley with Cranston Engineering. My home address is 1104 Campbellton Drive, North Augusta, South Carolina. I'd like to thank you again for indulging us tonight. As Mr. Paradise said, we do appreciate it taking the time to take a look at this. This is an early drawing, and I would reiterate that our intent here is to go as much as possible with the original PD plan. A modification is required because when the plan was developed in 2001 and approved, Interstate 520 was not here. So just the fact that it came through, we would have to file a modification to do the exact same plan minus 520, is my understanding. So as reaction to 520 coming through, we have repositioned some things on the site to make the plan work. So if you take the road and put right through the middle, some things need a little bit closer association to that. So we've responded some to that, but in generally speaking, our intent and this plan reflects using the same amount of entitlement. Where, as example, we were allowed 25.2 acres of village center. This plan reflects 25.2 acres of village center. So most of the area that you see that has been taken away from 520 was taken out of the golf course area, which it just is not a viable economic product these days. So we have done the best we can to stick with the intent of the original PD, bring you something that is not far afield from that, but something that responds, again, to our current economic climate and the physical alteration of the site by Interstate 520. Just to walk you through the location of the site, as you can see, 520 kind of runs right through the middle. We are at or near two access points to 520. There's the big cloverleaf that's the closest to Highway 25. There's the cloverleaf that comes off at Old Sudlow Lake Road and Belvedere Clearwater Road, and those are our two main access points. We also have access points all along Old Sudlow Lake Road, 2 points of access there. At Belvedere Clearwater, as I said, and at Blanchard Road to the north. Interconnectivity within the site, main access corridor going north to south, as you can see, roughly mirroring 520. An extension of 520 connector into the site, which will serve some our densest commercial offering, and school connector where the proposed school is happening, ties into again to Belvedere Clearwater Road. Neighborhood level connection will occur in compliance with the maximum block size. There are some topographic challenges on this site where we will not, at this point, we're not sure if we'll meet the grade requirements to come up and down, providing some access. So you see we're moving linearly along the property to facilitate that. But within our neighborhoods, we will provide the maximum, the required compliant connectivity within those neighborhoods. To describe the use zones, to kind of break this large property down into something that we can kind of hone in on, these are just something to latch onto. They're not set in stone. They're just how we're describing them at this point, so we can break it down and have a discussion of that. We're calling the Highway 25 mixed use zone. This is the parcel that is east, separated by 520 from the larger part of the site. We're proposing a mixed use area there that would have both housing and commercial in that area. The area immediately off of the main exit of 520, the central part of the site, the north central part of the site, would be an area where we would have commercial-oriented business or highway-oriented businesses like fast food, big box, things like that slated in this area. And that really, at this point, is only informing the way we're breaking down the lots. We have some high visibility areas along 520 that we would like to distribute some commercial area there. Behind that, we would have more of a office commercial type along that central linear corridor, separated by the linear park from any residential development in that area. Easternmost residential, which is on your plan, the top, comes down from the office, from the commercial area to a multifamily, medium density, and then a lower density residential. In that area, we would have interspaced green spaces. We would also have some village center use in that area to allow some potential restaurant development, small coffee shop, those kind of things to serve that neighborhood within, so we can keep not have to go all the way across the site to service all of our needs. The western residential, which is on the planned south side of the passive park area, is also phasing from lower density to higher density single family, higher density to lower density single family along that passive park with great access to the green space. The main village center you'll see is centered off the Belvedere Clearwater, what we're calling the school connector. It sits in between the points of those two connector roads. This is where we'll have most of our neighborhood scale commercial. This will be in an area that also has quick, easy access to multifamily housing, and we're proposing as well a higher education campus as a potential use in the area closest to 520 that's not immediately visible from 520. So you'll have a buffer from 520, but easy access to that area as part of mixed-use asset there. South of Old Sudlow Lake Road, we're proposing mostly dedicated to residential development. Again, the higher density and medium density that were allocated under our current PD, green space intermixed again. our green spaces. We have the passive park in the middle. A lot of this area is currently wetlands and associated buffers. We do plan to have some pedestrian access and some features there to make use of that. We also have a linear park that connects from north to south. That will be serve as both a buffer from our higher density commercial areas and our residential area, and also a thoroughfare for pedestrian bicycle access potentially. Touched on the neighborhood green spaces that we'll have throughout, and that's just a general overview of what we're planning at this stage. Again, I'm here representing the Divine Group, and we do have some members of the Divine Group here for any questions that you might have for them. But thank you for your time.
I have some questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I had noticed on page 4 of your report that you were going to try to preserve natural features. And so the passive park with all the green coloring and artwork there, that's a wetland, so that will never be torn down, bothered. So those trees will remain, right? Okay, and then linear park, are there trees in there, or that's just going to be a walking trail type thing?
You know, a lot of those particular details have not been figured out at
Okay.
this point, but it would be a green space for the North Augusta.
Okay, so to me, when I saw the passive park, that made me, I was trying to decide, are those going to really be trees there, or is that just a little artist work? And so if it's in a wetland, it can't be changed at all. Okay.
I have a question. So because obviously this is a huge development, are there phases? So is the residential phase first? Is it some combination of commercial and residential first? Just some ideas around.
It will be a phased development, from my understanding. I'm not sure exactly which phases will be going first, but that's something that we'll take under consideration and come back prepared to meet with you guys when we have our modification.
So you have no really no timeline schedule either as far as build out or anything? 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 6 months?
Well, I'm sure our developers would like to have it as quickly as possible. We do understand the timeline here, that we need to get our modification within the next 60 days or so to be able to move forward. But the economy and the things like that affected a lot more than we can control. So they're eager to get going, I can say that much.
I've got a question. In the previous approved plan, it looked like there was a good bit of light industry. I see most of this being heavy commercial and sort of dropping that light industry. Is that the case with this PD as well?
So if I could, I don't have the page here, but that is something that we probably should touch on. What was listed on the original plan as light industrial is specified in the original PD as heavy commercial light industrial. We're not requesting a change in use. We're still using these uses. We're requesting the same use. It was just specified as light industrial and heavy commercial. Heavy commercial being, I won't go through the whole list here, but more vehicular oriented commercial. So that is a use that we're reflecting here.
So the comment that you made about the higher education campus, when I had seen that earlier, I thought, wow, but you haven't gotten that established yet.
No, again, these are just kind of a flavor of what we think may be marketable in this area.
Right.
Anything that's specified as has more of a name than general commercial or that type of development is purely kind of what we think the market might acquire. And we would say that we want a general commercial use in this area. This is a possible use, but if we came back with something else in that use zone, that's equitable for that use, certainly the market would drive that.
All right.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I was unable to count, or in the report, how many access points do you have to all of the 1,100 acres?
Total access points, a little bit hard to quantify since we cross over.
Yeah, but just
five-
in general.
In general, again, we have, we're projecting two from our main development, call that between Old Sudlow Lake and 520. We have the connector that goes east onto 520, west, and connects to Blanchard. We have kind of two routes going out to Old Sudlow Lake, and one route that goes pretty much to Belvedere, Clearwater at 520.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? All right, thank you. We'll see if there are any comments or questions from the community. Okay, sir, if you could please come forward and give your name and address, and then we'll give the applicant an opportunity to respond to all questions and concerns.
I just have a quick question. A lot to understand. I'm Robert Flanagan. I live at 808 Lake Avenue in North Augusta. I'm with Security Land and Development Corporation, and I was wondering if the access they have on Blanchard Road, that's going to be the only access they have to Oscaga Lake Road. Is that correct?
All right, so what we'll do is, Mr. Fang, if you have any other questions or concerns, and then we'll see if there's anyone else, and we'll let them respond.
That's the only question I have.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. All right. Are there any other questions or concerns from the community? All right. Sir, if you could please respond to Mr. Flanagan's, answer Mr. Flanagan's question about access to Blanchard.
We're currently not showing an access to Oscaga Lake Road. It will likely be very close to the intersection or to the flyover of Oscaga Lake and 520, but we do have a piece of our property that touches Oscaga Lake Road. If you'll notice, kind of the very northern tip of that. So we do have a potential access point there, but at this time, it's unclear as to whether that's a feasible access point.
All right, thank you. All right. Commissioners, any points, any things, concerns, anything we need to make sure that we share with the applicant at this point? Or
And looking at the artist rendition, everything looks, I mean, to my eye, looks fine. But I can't really discern interconnectivity. That's something that want to relate to you that we're big on. And your access points, so that when we get down the road, we're not discussing how do you get in, how do you get out, whether you have enough that creates a traffic study, that we don't want that to be a hindrance. But as far as your passive park with the wetlands, I think that's a nice point. But that's my main thing, to make sure that those things have been taken into consideration. Because 1,200 acres, I was looking at 200 acres the other day, and I said, my Lord, 200 acres was a lot, and then this is, 1,200 acres. That's a lot to get your arms around. So those would be the things that I would be mainly concerned with.
And Mr. Key, if I may, we would anticipate a new traffic impact analysis prior to it coming back to the Planning Commission. We share your concerns on the connectivity and the access points, and making sure that that's provided for on the global scale of the project rather than the different phases.
And some things we get pushback on a lot is traffic and sidewalks. Once we really start getting into, y'all gonna make us have sidewalks? Yeah. So be it known that price that in.
On page 8, I had highlighted that also, for architectural elements, and it says that you will be following all the items that are listed there. And the number 3 on the first one, was about garage fronts, and that you're moving them back. The garages aren't gonna be jutting out, is the way I read that. Am I correct on that?
Again, I'll just reiterate, I believe this is a staff comment, particularly relating to something that's not specified in the current PD. So this is a standard requirement. Our intention at this point is to comply to the greatest degree possible with the existing PD.
Is that gonna be?
Well, when they come back for the modification, they could certainly ask for this. This is what's the standard boilerplate requirement. And that's why it's in there, because to let you know what the standards are. Now, being a PD, they could certainly ask for that to be changed and have design criteria specific to their development. But I don't think, every indication that I've gotten is that they've, are going along with what we have established in the guidelines for multifamily. Say that right?
Yes, sir.
So that's what you're saying too?
Yes, ma'am, that's our intent.
Okay, because to me, that kind of gives that neighborhood a little softening, and you're gonna have so many of them. That was one thing I'd put a star by that you were saying you were gonna do, so that was one of my points. Okay.
Any other comments?
The only comment I have is just to reiterate the point about the traffic situation. There's going to be a tremendous impact to all those surrounding roads, be it Old Sudlow, be it Blanchard, Muskogee, possibly 25. We should make sure we've got our ducks in a row there when we go back through this, particularly with the school as well as coming in to bring additional traffic as well. That's all I have.
So I think you all heard traffic, connectivity are all important to us. Green space, obviously the wetlands takes care of that. So I think if you go back on Facebook and watch any previous meetings, you'll see that we are pretty consistent in that. And also I think sidewalks and walkability. So value all of those things here. Okay. All right. So I think a motion on the approve. Do we need a, no, it's just a review.
Just a
So we don't
review.
need anything. Okay. So thank you all. Do you all have anything else that you all needed from us? All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Paradise, time for a staff report.
Yes, ma'am. And as y'all are aware, believe it's next Wednesday, we'll be meeting for a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and City Council. That'll be at 6, if I remember correctly, Wednesday. And there'll be a light meal provided. And that should give a meeting, give y'all an opportunity for the Planning Commission and Council to discuss things and to decide what you need to be working on, where you're headed, that type thing. As far as the staff for the month goes, there was 5 of us went to the SCAPA meeting this past Friday. Ms. Mackey, Ms. Harbison, Mr. Harbison, Ms. Stallworth, myself, and Stacy from the department. And the development code rewrite is going forward. We anticipate the steering committee, it going to steering committee in the next few weeks. That's what the consultant has told me. That's what I'm banking on. And we haven't scheduled that meeting date yet. And I think that's pretty much it for what's happening with us.
Is there any sort of agenda for next Wednesday? Or is it an open discussion? Or will we
That's-
get any work ahead of time, or so we don't walk in this blind?
I don't think you've got any homework. I think the administrator's office is working on an agenda. And I don't know, I will reach out to Rachel and ask her if y'all can have that ahead of time.
I was going to say, because I'm sure they will be prepared, whereas we may not. That's what concerns me.
I understand.
Have that time together to go over that as a unit. So I didn't, that was my understanding of what that time was.
Well, some of the things
Just want to be prepared, that's all.
some of the things that we have discussed on the agenda, for the agenda would be, we're at comprehensive plan, George Avenue, traffic calming, which if I can back up to an update, that is something I need to tell y'all. We did finally get the go-ahead from DOT to advertise for a consultant there. So that's a step forward. And the development code, where we are with that. Roles and responsibilities between the two different bodies. And then there was some, what kind of issues are coming up? Do y'all foresee that type of discussion? So that's kind of how I see the meeting structured. Charlie Barru from the Municipal Association is scheduled to facilitate it for us. And but I see it as basically getting together and having a discussion, brainstorming, and coming up with a common path forward.
Oh, and I think even the conversation today around DOT and some of these developments that we've done in succession, and how do we continue beyond the traffic studies that we've already requested, and are there new areas that we need to? So I think some of those things are that hope to be, but I would also hope that we talk about.
Also, to me, we keep saying to everybody that, and I know Lynn brings it up each time, but what are you doing? What are you doing about traffic? Is just your opinion. Is DOT kind of getting where they say we're going to put traffic lights up, we're going to do some things, or are they just saying, too bad, too sad, don't have the money, don't have the time, we're not?
It's not too bad, too sad. We don't have the money. It is, from the engineering analysis, is a traffic light warranted here, and does it meet the specifications? If it doesn't meet the warrant requirements for the traffic light, there is concern from DOT from the liability issue. They've got certain standards to put in a traffic light, and that's what they go by. But no, I don't think that the city has received a negative. It's just, these are the rules.
Well, I know that when we were doing the traffic lights out Martintown Road and at the high school, and they gave us these years that they would do it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just wondering, are we gonna be looking at, we'll do that in 5 years, we'll do that in 7 years, or are they really like, okay, we need to do something here?
If they tell you they're going to do it in 5 years, and in 5 years that intersection doesn't meet the criteria that's necessary for a traffic signal, they're not going to put it in. If you have an area before that 5 years that has a high growth and meets the requirements for a traffic signal, I think DOT is there to work with us.
Well, and I'm gonna stop, but I'm gonna just say this.
Okay.
The DOT told us that they weren't gonna put one at Bergen Road, and they weren't gonna put one at I-20 exit. and Georgia DOT did it.
Well, Georgia DOT is doing that project.
I know, but they were saying we don't need it, we don't need
So
it. Then they
if
came and
Georgia,
did it.
if Georgia DOT put that light in, South Carolina DOT approved it and paid for it.
So they paid for it. South Carolina.
I don't think Georgia DOT is gonna pay to put a light
Okay.
over here in South Carolina.
Okay.
My,
I'm
my,
not
my,
arguing with that.
my understanding is, while it's one contract, that portion of I-20 and the improvements on this side of the river is being reimbursed by the state of South Carolina to Georgia. But if you think about it, it's more cost-effective for one contractor to do that entire job than to split it up in two different contracts with two different states.
Are those traffic lights, I was, I don't know if they were different. We had one light good for North Augusta with the arms and everything, and then we had the other one that was on cable.
That was from city council. They had a fit about Bergen Road. They wanted it to have an arm.
Right.
Correct.
It'd be nice.
And the city pays, there's an extra cost to that DOT doesn't pay.
So,
But isn't it? Go ahead.
well, no, what I was gonna say, so Mr. Paradise, I think what all of this does is that maybe we need an agenda item around traffic in general. And so what that process looks like, the role of, traffic in both the growth and vision, for North Augusta and everyone's roles in that, I think is probably what this conversation means.
It does.
Okay.
And we could be a lot like, and this is not disparaging, but Columbia County, it started growing so fast that Washington Road is, and all of the roads leading off is just a mess, in my opinion. It's very difficult getting in, and so if we can get ahead of that, because everybody's squeezing in, and doing a good job on the infield to kind of plan it more so than it exploding based on what we are approving, and then it's.
So also on that, you might want to talk to Bill Hickson, because he worked on that forever, and it was just like dead, and then they did that exit ramp, and Georgia DOT said, what? That's the way I took it, because I had been in touch with Bill constantly about Bergen Road being so dangerous when school was going in and out.
So I think some clarity around the process, and it does sound a slight kind of, I think, chicken and egg, right? So there are certain screens that they have to meet, but then there's certain, I guess we are making decisions assuming that things
They're
may or
gonna be
may not
supported.
hit those screens or what our basis of. So I think some clarity just around that for everybody, both us and council, I think would be
Yeah.
Public infrastructure always seems to lag behind,
right.
especially
Does.
with roads.
It really does, and it's
Okay.
so dangerous.
One more thing too that's kind of been on, I would say on my design heart, in our guidelines and whatnot. It's if you go in a lot of the neighborhoods that have been mass graded, and I'm not necessarily beating these folks down. I understand the cost and the road width that they're putting these houses in, and is there any way that, I'm not saying it's necessarily mandate this, but have an incentive to have these folks use parking in the back, coming in the back entrance more so, and then have it pushed forward? A lot of the when I came on board to the commission, we used to tout, you remember Daniels Island and all those places in Beaufort, how the houses were pushed forward and they had not an expensive alleyway and they parked in the back. And those houses those areas that have been done like that, the values have gone up out of the roof.
The only thing is he mentioned that when he was here, that's 2 roads for every house. It adds road after road, because you gotta have a road in the front, and they were doing Daniels Island and all that, well, they did that at the river.
Is the alley, but the alleyways are not under the same specs as a.
It's still
conventional roof.
paved.
I know it's paved, but I'm saying. So what y'all saying, this is a pipe dream?
It's a nice idea, and it's real expensive.
And just to also remind everyone, so part of it is also making sure, though, that we also have some affordable housing, right? And so are you going to have alleys in a price point that are affordable for some of the citizens of North Augusta as well, right? So it is the balance between the two, making sure, because we're not Daniel Island.
I know, but let me,
Hammond's Ferry is
Yeah.
Daniel Island.
yeah, but I've been working in affordable housing for 35 years. And I am a half full, glass half full kind of guy. I don't think there's such thing as affordable housing. I mean, I've been doing it. This is not, I'm saying it is such a project unless, it is so difficult because you got to have this joint municipality and developer. I'm saying it's worthy of working toward, but I'm losing faith because of cost of everything. Affordable housing now was $160,000, not a house, $240,000.
No, I hear you, but it's just a balance between not making sure that we require things that tip it even further in the other direction, right? Like that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all. But all that being said, we won't hold everybody in Facebook world for this. But no, I think that hopefully Ms. Paradise gives you some additional things let's maybe be discussed, and we will see each other I think next week. Anything else? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you. Okay. All right.
Did you get our certificates, Tommy?
I
I
did,
sent mine.
and I have, yeah, if you'll send it to me, I'll give it to Phyllis to file.
And that means the rest of us have to do ours before.
Y'all get to go to Hilton here.
Hmm?
Y'all get to go to Hilton here.
When is that? About for continuing ed. There's so in-person opportunities now after being online for a couple of years. So it is a reemergence of in-person opportunities for continuing ed as
I
opposed to
thought
just
it was still
virtual.
virtual, so I called Tommy's
Okay.
office and asked them where we were going to meet. And they said Camden. I almost had a heart attack.
All right, well, again, thank you all, and I guess we didn't formally adjourn. I don't need a motion to adjourn. Just in case. All right, thank you.